Hi, welcome to Felixstowe Live. It's just coming up to 7 o'clock on the evening of Thursday, the 29th of April, 2021. My name's Chris Gosling, and tonight we're doing something a bit different. We're going to talk about the upcoming election. We have the Suffolk County Council election coming up to us next week on the 6th of May. One of the things that's got me as someone who does online journalism is how little diversity we have in the kind of coverage that we get of the people who are involved in our local government. And so what I thought we'd do is invite all the people who are standing as candidates in the upcoming county council election and see which of them wanted to come along and have a chat. It's an online chat, and tonight my first guest is a young man who's pretty well known in Felixstowe. A lot of people know this face, and here it is. It's young Mark Jones. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Chris. Hello, Felixstowe Live.
Nice to have you here, mate. Now, Mark, I've known you for a long time, and you've always been what I'd call politically active. You believe that people can make a difference, and I believe that people can make a difference as well. And in this election, you are standing for the Communist Party. Now, that's an old name from my point of view, but many people probably won't know much about it, but you're here to tell us, and I think that's what we'll start off with. So if you would be so kind, I'd like it if you would give us a bit of background perhaps on yourself and a bit of background about what you and your party stand for. Off you go. It's all yours.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. And first off, thanks for inviting me on. It's really a good show by yourself to have these discussions going on in Felixstowe, because it's absolutely important, really vitally important, that we get to know what's going on, get to know what people stand for. And yes, my name is Mark Jones. I'm standing as the Communist Party candidate for Felixstowe Coastal Division in this year's County Council elections. It's the first time the CP has stood in local elections here in Suffolk in almost 40 years. I'm originally from London. I moved to Suffolk in the 90s and settled here in Felixstowe, and have been working in the utility construction sector for the past 20 odd years. I'm also a very proud member of Unite the Union. Recently, I spoke at the launch of the Communist Party's All Britain manifesto. And in the run-up to that, I reached out to fellow comrades from around the country, around England. I was being asked to represent England as a region, as part of the All Britain manifesto. And I spoke to them about asking them for their experiences and accounts of the suffering, indeed it is suffering, keenly felt by the working class as a result of decades of capitalism and austerity from all shades of political spectrum. And it gave me an opportunity to share with everyone, thousands of people who tuned in, what I'm about to say to you now is really the experiences of pretty much every single region in England. For Suffolk, I mean, it's a common misconception, Chris, that Suffolk is a relatively affluent place. And yes, there are indeed some highly wealthy residents. The county, however, is blighted by the persistence of severe income deprivation. There was a report published in last year, 2020, Hidden Needs Report. 10% of the population in Suffolk were in receipt of working tax credits, income support, job seekers allowance, all this sort of thing, child and working tax credits. 10%, that's around about 75,000 people here in Suffolk. And of course, in the most deprived wards in Suffolk, and indeed here in Felixstowe, it's gotten worse. since 2007, with declines in jobs, education, access to public transport, and so on. We must also recognise, and I guess in some ways we see it quite a bit here in Felixstowe, but it's not exclusive to Felixstowe. Suffolk has an ageing population, but social care spending has not kept pace with that reality. Privatised care homes and nursing homes now only provide the minimum of care, all the while maximising profits and shareholder value. Of course, you know, care homes were once run by Suffolk County Council. A proportion of Suffolk neighbourhoods that are among England's most deprived 10% for health and disability has increased from 1.8 to 3.2% since 2007, up to latest figures, I think, were 2019. If we move over, something I'm incredibly passionate about, jobs for young people. You know, many of these jobs are in non-unionised, insecure sectors such as social care, hospitality, tourism, culture, and housing costs, both in the private sector, rented and mortgage costs as a percentage of gross pay, has risen to a staggering 45+% of income across the east of England. Here in Suffolk, I think it's around about 47% for young people. Say, for instance, in looking to rent a 3-bed house, for instance. Yet Suffolk County Council isn't unique in continuing to cut back on these frontline services while boosting its reserves. And I hope we'll get to talk about those reserves a little later, Chris. Felixstowe in itself is showing scars of a society that's becoming increasingly unequal, where working people and young people in particular are exploited and marginalised. You know, we're dealing with COVID-19 at the moment. We've got millions and millions of people will be left without work. Working families and children will be pushed further into poverty. And this will be, we'll see, there'll be a dramatic rise. I foresee a dramatic rise in 0 hours working and job insecurity, homelessness, rental housing evictions, and you know, mortgage bank foreclosures. All of this will heap further pressure on families and our communities. They will affect your neighbours, our communities here in Felixstowe, and the needs of the working class here in Felixstowe, Suffolk, and indeed across the country, have been ignored by the capitalist political elite who have held on to power for decades, as you know, Chris. Main political parties won't even utter the words working class, so it's hardly surprising that come election time, so few come out to vote. The rich have gotten richer on the backs of our labour. You and I, whilst all this is happening, Chris, you and I and your viewers here have been rewarded with a managed, and it is a managed decline of our public services. Public buildings such as local schools have been closed, former council offices have been made redundant to make way for so-called savings. All of these have stood serving our communities for decades and decades, and they're being continually put up for sale, only for housing developers to come along, snap up and make eye-watering profits from. The new homes that will be built, they won't serve the communities. They won't be serving local families. They won't be serving school leavers or care workers. No, they'll only serve the profiteering private landlords and the wealthy elite. As a matter of fact, council houses, let alone council house building in this part of the world is almost unheard of, bar one or two pockets in Ipswich. But I'll finish on this, Chris. Thank you for giving me this opportunity again. All Communist party candidates are campaigning on a manifesto focused on massive improvements to community facilities, health and education, the environment, housing, jobs and transport. And this is just the start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mark. That's a pretty serious indictment, I think, of the way things work at the moment. Let me just go to our incoming messages. Don't forget, if you'd like to say something to Mark, if you'd like to ask a question, you can. All you have to do is put it in on Facebook and we'll pick it up and he'll answer it. If you want to, or if you're watching this later on, after we've finished the live session, you can still do the same, and I'm sure Mark will take a look and answer any questions that come up. So really, this is about trying to keep you in the picture of what's happening and to help you understand what Mark and the Communist Party are standing for. Don't forget, we'll do the same thing with other parties and any other councillors who want to get in touch with us, other than the ones we already know about, or candidates, should I say. We'd love to hear from you. Let's take a look at a couple of comments that have come in immediately. Stuart says public transport is very important to local economy, and it certainly is, isn't it? It's kind of the lubricant that gets us around the place. And then we've got a lady called Monica who says we all know families that are struggling. That's true, isn't it, Mark?
Indeed. Sorry, I couldn't catch the first gentleman who was it Stuart?
Stuart,
who made a comment about transport. Thank you, Stuart. It's a great observation. I mean, it's a vital. He's right. Stuart's right. It's a vital lifeline for families, communities, and workers. And it's overpriced. It's in the hands of the private sector. And, it's operated by monopoly private companies. I put in my campaign leaflet, almost like a manifesto, really, that's gone out to 10,000 plus homes in Felixstowe earlier this month. And I'm asking for free travel for under 25s. That'll make a massive difference to the young people in our communities who are on effectively minimum wage and 0-hour contracts, and we need to recognise that work is happening 24/7 now. I dare say that massive new warehouse that's been built just up from the dock. I think you've covered that as a story, Chris. That's going to be opening soon. That'll be operating 24/7. How are people going to get to work? Are we relying on the car again? These places are not served. The Port of Felixstowe isn't properly served by public transport. It's a valid point, Chris. Thanks for putting that. Things like having a night bus or a night train to and from Ipswich, get people in and out of the town. If you don't get the 20 past 10, whatever it is, train from Ipswich back to Felixstowe, that's it. I mean, 10 o'clock, what's, the world's still turning at that time. Ipswich is only just getting started. I mean, we're just being neglected by the powers that be, and the powers that be are running currently Suffolk County Council. The bit about Monica, was it? Thank you, Monica. All around us. I live up near the dock, and you see poverty in the eyes of the people that you're sharing a checkout with. Looking in their baskets, and they're trying to raise a family. I mean, it's heartbreaking. I can't really say much more than that. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to Luke. What are you going to do about the new housing estates that keep popping up in and around Felixstowe without investment in infrastructure? That's a bit of an interesting question, really, because, of course, the planning sector isn't to do with Suffolk County anyway. The planning sector, as we know, is to do with the district council level. But give us an opinion, by all means, if you wish, Mark, on this.
Yeah, it's again, we've seen time and time and time again, we have several developments going on around Felixstowe at the moment where zero effort has gone in to improve the community that those developments are being built in or alongside. And Luke's right, the infrastructure, it's next to nothing. You know, when you think you can, I mean, there was a thing just a couple of years ago, wasn't there? Someone made a film about footpaths being sort of 8 inches wide in a development in Trimley. And you know, this is the sort of thing that these big developers, multinational developers, are getting away with. They're getting away with providing facilities or next to nothing, but for maximum profit. I'll certainly be challenging that, and I hope Luke will pick up that the spirit in which I'm taking this on, this fight, this struggle on, is for the communities, is for the working class here in Felixstowe. Our voice needs to be heard, and currently it ain't being heard. Until now, Chris, until this evening.
We've just got a comment again from Stuart, who says those housing estates with little infrastructure for the disabled. We did cover a story, I don't know when it was last year or whenever, I think, about a footpaths that are about 8 inches wide, I think, weren't there, or something like that. Yeah. And that was completely ludicrous. We got a nice kind thank you from Monica, who was glad to hear from you. And let's see what else we've got. There's, there we go. This is quite a long one from Paul. Housing is needed, but it must be council housing for local workers. You can read it at your end to yourself, Mark, and give us a comment. It's an interesting one because I guess I see. I'm sorry, I'm reading some other things at the same time. It's have a little look at this one, Mark, and see what you think. Is
that Paul about housing is needed? Is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, so Paul asks, housing is needed, but it must be council housing for local workers and their families that is truly affordable. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, under the Tories in Felixstowe, you know, I was going to address this a little bit later, actually, but if you look at Persimmon Homes, for instance, Persimmon Homes, big developer, they've got their greedy little mitts on a plot of land. I think it's on Grove Road, just the road going out of Felixstowe from Beatrice Avenue, and where those small light industrial units once were, just by the chip and putt or whatever it was, golf range. 1 in 4, Chris, I hope you are sitting down for this.
I'm sitting down.
1 in 4 of those homes, when they're built and sold, 1 in 4 is clear profit for Persimmon Homes. Clear profit. Now, how much? Perhaps you could ask the councillors who are coming on to your channel in the coming days. Perhaps you could ask them how much of that profit is going to be reinvested in the local communities here in Felixstowe. How much of it?
Good question, isn't it? It's a really difficult situation. And the problem that we have as well is that so much goes on in terms of how the commercial aspect of these transactions work. We don't know about. None of this is transparent. I've got another comment coming from Monica. Young families have no chance of getting a mortgage. Saving a deposit is impossible. And I think it is truly for many, many people, isn't it, really?
There was the comment, Chris, if I can just come in here, about someone mentioned, I forget, you're across it, was about council housing. We are in desperate need of council housing in Felixstowe and across Suffolk. The young people who are leaving, what is it now called, Felixstowe Academy, who are going on to University of Suffolk and elsewhere, they have nowhere to put roots down. We need communities built with local people. Of course, you're going to have other people coming in. That's just life, and we should welcome that, because there's nothing better than having a diverse society and a diverse community. It's rich in that diverseness. But we've been abandoned by the establishment parties for decades. They're not investing in infrastructure. I was going to come on about Deben School. Deben School, Suffolk County Council did a cosy little deal with East Suffolk Council. And of course, they're proposing, we'll have some amenities, civic amenities there. But the rest of the plot, the largest part of that plot, will be put to private housing and so-called affordable housing. Now, that affordable housing, I mean, it's a complete misnomer. I mean, it's just, and I dare say and many of the viewers on this this evening, and those who follow it back later, will know that there's no such thing as affordable housing when you've got no deposit, when you've got low income, and you're on minimum wage and 0 hours contract. What is affordable to those people? We need council houses to be built. As I say, these buildings like Deben School, that's been in it was built in the 30s, Chris, as a former, I think it was a grammar school back in the day, and then it became a municipal, state comprehensive school. But these are buildings, as I said earlier, they've been serving the community for decades, and they're just being sold off. Who are they going to serve? They're not going to serve the likes of you and I, or the family down the road that is struggling to afford the bus fare to send their child to school.
Now, we've got a question come in from a lady called Lena. I think that's how you say it, Lena. Yep. Let's just put that up on the screen. And I'm going to say to this one, Mark, I don't want you to answer this one, because I'd like you to, if you would, you can gladly answer it online afterwards. But I don't really want to get into kind of national questions at this point, because we're talking about Suffolk County Council. And I want to ask you a question of my own at this point.
Just to answer, Lena, I think the question was, sorry, Chris, to cut across, do I support a 12.5% to 15% pay rise for NHS workers? Absolutely, 100%. And we should be giving them a council house as well to live in. Okay.
The question I want to ask you, actually, Mark, and this comes back to Suffolk County. What Suffolk County Council services need to be looked at and perhaps managed better? One of the things the main thing we're talking about here is the actual county council that you're standing for election to. What specific areas do you think we really need to get something changed with?
Good question. I mentioned earlier, Chris, in my sort of preamble, some of what I'd target, but I'd also focus on taking services back in-house. Let's have local nationalisation. Let's take back the running, as I said earlier, and a comment from one of your contributors earlier about local transport. Let's take back the running of local buses. The ancillary contracts surrounding schools, the management of our highways, something that's a responsibility of the county council. Let's get rid of that multinational Kia company. Let's bring it back under the auspices and control of Suffolk County Council, and bring back, it's really important for me, bring back all social services. We need to bring them back in-house, reduce the role of private companies. That's what I'm championing. The other question, Chris, you'd asked what would I be looking at and managing differently.
Yeah.
I'd also call, I don't know how many of your viewers watching this know this, but I think it does need to be brought out into the open. I'd also call for county council reserves to be managed in a way that benefits the good people of Suffolk. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but between 2010 and last year, 2020, the amount of money that has sat in the county council's reserves has almost doubled, from a little over £100 million to, I think the latest figure in their accounts last year were £208 million sat in the county council's reserves. That's in 10 years. What have we had over the last 10 years? We've had austerity. That's a simply staggering amount of money to have down the back of your newly purchased John Lewis sofa, don't you think, Chris?
Right. That puts that in its place, doesn't it? Excellent.
Okay.
I mean,
can I just, sorry, just to add,
yeah, go on,
sorry,
go.
I can carry on like this for hours. But when, for instance, look for, women's refuges. Here's another one for you. We've got one in Ipswich. Funding for women's refuges has been cut by 65% since 2010. I mean, staggering. We see, again, children's centres. The Tories are after back at children's centres. I don't know what it is about young families, women and children that they're dead against, but they're being closed left, right and centre. And we have another round of closures. They're going to dress it up into something perhaps a little bit more palatable. But these children's centres that the Tories are set to close offer much, much needed support and practical advice for young families. They're being wiped out. We've seen that here in Felixstowe. We've also, Chris, and this is something that you've commented on often on your channel. We've watched the decline of high street shops. Large retail companies have closed their stores in Felixstowe, and the council has done nothing at all to help fill the void. We need a radical look at that situation. A radical look. I'll be pushing for buildings such as the old Marks and Spencer's to be repurposed into a local creche, a youth training and skills centre, a hub for adult learning, which can be run in conjunction with the local library, convert the floors above into a women's refuge or council flats, something for the community. We've got these opportunities that are afforded to big organisations like Suffolk County Council. And, as I say, the selling off of council-owned land to big housing developers is nothing short of scandalous, in my opinion. It's not giving anything back to the community, far from it. It's just another nail in the coffin for community life. So, yeah, I mean, I talk about the fabric of Felixstowe. Its community life, its heritage. We spoke about Deben School, the police office, the police station. Been here since the 20s and 30s and whatnot. They've served our communities for decades, and they're just going to be carved up for profit, basically. The developers have absolutely zero interest in Felixstowe. I go back to Luke and his point about infrastructure. There's zero interest for it here in Felixstowe. The profit that Person and Homes and the like, that'll all be put back. Will that be put back into the local economy and local services? Of course not. How can we, Chris? How can and this again refer to the people who are looking, the good people of Felixstowe and beyond, who are looking and viewing this channel right now and listening to me talking about these issues, how can we sit by and not call on councils to invest and build good quality, zero carbon council homes for the young families of Felixstowe, for our future? Could it have, I'll ask the question, could it have something to do with the doctrine of the ruling party and their subordinate councils sitting on both councils? You can ask them the question. It's an outrage as far as I'm concerned. Who and what is Suffolk County Council for if it's not for the people?
I think that's going to be us, young Mark. I think you've done a fantastic job putting forward the point of view of your individual self and of the Communist Party in Suffolk. So I'm going to call it a halt there. I'm going to say one of the things I'm going to get you to do is now go and do some more work, because looking down the list of comments, we've got a lot of comments. Thank you all for watching. If you're watching the recording of this, do bear in mind that you can't comment once we've finished, but you can still comment and ask questions of Mark, because he'll be glad to answer them. Mark, what's the best way to contact you on Facebook, etc.?
Great. Thanks, Chris, and thanks for everyone and the comments. And we'll pick those up in due course between Chris and myself. It's great that people are engaged in this way, Chris, and thanks again for this opportunity, not just for me. It's not about me, it's about Felixstowe, the people of Felixstowe, who have really suffered. We've seen it. I've lived here for just over 20 years and I've seen its decline. And it's not about having a few more flower pots and planters around the place. We need to help the communities. We need to organise that first. We need a radical approach. But to answer your question, please hook up on our Facebook. We are East Suffolk CP. My campaign page on Facebook is Mark Jones CP, and the same goes for Twitter as well. We're on Twitter and also Instagram. So by all means, drop us a line. We're going to be out in Felixstowe on Saturday morning, Chris, with a street stall. It's May Day, International Workers' Day. We'll be recognising that on Saturday morning in Hamilton Road between 10 and 12. And if any of your listeners and watchers, viewers here would like a chat, we've got all the time in the world. More than happy to speak with them. Tell me about your struggles. Tell me about the issues that concern you here in Felixstowe. I'm all ears. I will champion the cause of the working class here in Felixstowe. I'm an unabashed working class person and championing the working class and the workers of Felixstowe. Too often we hear about business from all the establishment parties. Yeah, the business, but what about the people? Joe Biden yesterday said trickle-down economics has failed. Wow, did I laugh? We've known that. Karl Marx knew that over a century and a half ago. Yeah, please vote for me on May the 6th. We need a change. People ask for it. They tell you we need a change. It's the same old, same old. Well, I'm not the same old, same old. I'll be doing something for you, the working people, and those less fortunate here in Felixstowe, championing, being your voice. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. I've really enjoyed having you on this little session. I'll say goodbye to you now, and we're off on to the next topic, which is what we've got coming next. Next on our shows, we have this Saturday, this gentleman. Come along, machine. This is Seamus Bennett. Seamus is actually standing for the Liberal Democrats in Felixstowe. So you'll be able to meet him on Saturday. I'm not sure whether it's going to happen at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. yet. And then on Sunday at around 7 p.m, we've got Graham Newman, who is a standing councillor with Suffolk County Council. He's been doing the job for a long time, and he'll be with us then. in the meantime, a really big thank you to Mark, because his as I said, and as you now know, he is one of those people who really gets behind what he believes in. And I think that's really vitally important. So I'm going to say thank you very much to young Mark, and we will see you soon. I'm Chris, this is Felixstowe Live, and we'll be back with you. I'm sure we'll have something for you tomorrow. And there you go, young Mark. I think I'll just have to press